Hey everybody, and welcome to Side Quests, the episodes that occur between the episodes that are based on the game for which the podcast is named. And I have to find an increasingly more complex way to say that every week. I am Drew Hayes. Joining me this week is Rick Gualtieri, Robert Bevan, and Steve Wetherill, as we have a very special guest with us, author of several series, including The Completionist Chronicles, The Divine Dungeon, and Full Murder Hobo. Thank you for joining us, Dakota Krout.
Woo. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Or thanks for inviting me in and letting me be here. This is pretty exciting.
Glad to have you, man.
Yeah.
So you had a book come out recently. We always plug at the top. It just gets it out of the way.
Sure.
And that one's in the Completionist Chronicles, correct?
Correct, yes. So that one is Amazon says book 6. It is Inflame. So the Completionist Chronicles Inflame. It hit number 5 on the bestseller list, and so that was pretty dang cool.
That's kick ass, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon says book 6. Do you disagree, or did you just not know?
So I have kind of a side quest, which is kind of funny. So I have a side story, which is Rexus. And so Rexus was intended as a side story, but in order to link it to the series, Amazon calls that one book 3, right? So to me, this is actually book 5. Right, so Inflame is book 5 to me, but it's book 6 to Amazon. Yeah.
The annoying thing is Amazon recently redid their whole series pages, so now you can actually really on the back end you can say this book is related to this series, except it doesn't show up anywhere on their fucking site. So it's like thank you for reminding me that my book is related to this series. Could you maybe remind the customers?
Yeah, I had to throw Corpies back in with superpowers. I was like, it's just gone. Like, people are just not going to know this exists.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure there's bugs to work out. Yeah, it was exciting, man. It was a super exciting week. Especially so that was like March 30th it came out, and then that whole week it's just kind of a blur of laughing maniacally.
With that ranking, damn right.
Right? Yeah, that was really cool. Actually, we were number 9 on the Associated Press bestseller list for that week as well.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. So it was a pretty wild week. Pretty exciting.
That is definitely a successful launch by any metric.
Oh fuck yeah!
Yes. Flying out of the gate.
I mean that's hookers and cocaine money right there.
If you say so.
That's a good answer, Dakota. That's a very good answer there.
That is a very non-committal answer.
That's what I'm working on, man. I'm getting pretty good at those.
So let's knock out the one that always has to get asked and kind of comes at in every interview. How did you get into the profession of writing?
So kind of, I mean, it's a long story, so I'll just try and hit the highlights for you. So I joined the Army at 17, right? And when I was in, so for the first 4 years, I was, in Georgia, and then I moved up to the Twin Cities, and then Twin Cities, Minnesota, and then up to Grand Forks, North Dakota. So when I got done with my time in, being active with what I was doing, I started going to university. So, about 21, I started at University of North Dakota, and I actually have a degree in computer science now. But I really liked to get things done, right? I like to see a problem and fix it. And one of the problems I was having was that I was mostly hanging out with like 18-year-olds, when you're 21 and just start college. Everyone else there is like 18, whatever. And it was really hard for me to be in the same room with people that would raise their hand and ask to go to the bathroom still. So I started taking more classes. So I got up to about 22 credits a semester. And then, so I went, graduated just a couple of years later. So I'm pretty sure I graduated at 23. I'm trying to remember. It was so many years ago now. It's like It's not even that. It's not even that long ago. It was like 5-6 years ago. You know, it feels so long ago.
Now we're in fuck you, junior territory.
Well, I just turned 30 3 weeks ago, so
definitely fuck you.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna turn off my mic and wither and die.
Well, so I was going to college, and so for the first couple of years, I just took as many courses as I could. And then my senior kind of year, couple semesters, I had taken all the courses that I could, you know. So I was down to like 6 to 8 total a semester, which is under full time, and it was mostly just like senior capstone, like, you know, like pretty much that's all I had the whole day at that point. And so I had these big chunks of time between classes and work and all this other stuff where, you know, it wasn't enough time to go in and do a piddling little amount of work, and it wasn't, you know, I didn't need all that time for studying what I was doing. So I started writing, and it worked out really well. My wife was working on her dissertation at the time for her PhD, so she did not care what I was doing. You know, like she had, you know, I'm like, hey, honey, I'm writing a book. And she's like, that's great. Keep it quiet. You know, that sort of thing. And the other thing is, you know, like my D&D group had, you know, graduated and moved away. So we were, you know, just trying to find things to do. And I didn't want to watch movies and take time doing other things. So I started writing. And so in my senior year, or in my final semester, I also decided to take just an extra elective course on, you know, like writing, you know, so took an extra course on creative writing. And what I signed up for was a course that was genre fiction, short stories, stuff like that. And at the last minute, the professor backed out, and a different professor was put into the course. And it went from like short stories and genre fiction into it turned into like poetry and like literature dissection, basically.
Oh man.
And it's well, I won't go into the whole story, but she and I did not get along super well, because I was, you know, at that point like a 23-year-old military veteran, you know, working 2 full-time jobs, already married, and, you know, sitting in front, you know, having to text on my phone because I had to be talking to my boss throughout the day for various reasons. So anyway, she was always, she was very unhappy that I was in her class and not paying attention super well. So anyway, near the end of the thing, of that course, I had finished my first book, or I was real close to it. Real close to finishing it, but I was hesitant to put it out, right? And one of the things is, you know, you're always thinking you can do better. You're thinking that you can write more and clean it up and make it into better work. And so this professor slapped a paper down in front of me. She gave me a very low grade on, and she said, "No one will ever read anything you write." And so I went home and hit the publish button, and that was Dungeonborn. Yep.
Spite comes in where courage fails.
Yep.
That's right, man. So that was so I went home and finished up, you know, just what I was doing, and push button on Dungeonborn, and it was kind of funny because I finished it, and the same day I finished it, I hit the publish button, right? And my lovely wife, who was working on her, like I said, dissertation at the time, I said, "Hey, Danielle, you want to know what I'm about to do?" "Yeah, sure, what?" I said, "I'm hitting the publish button." She goes, wait. We can get an editor. We can get better cover art. And I was like, "No, I need to do it now, or else I might never do it." Like,
but don't do it now. I won't get the revenge kick I'm after.
Please tell me that every time that you Facebook stalk this teacher, and every time you bought the book, you send it and be like, "Hey, look, I'm number 6 in the Associated Press. Nobody's reading it."
Just tag her at the bottom of every house.
No, my friend. So I'm of the mindset that the best revenge is living well. So I do not even remember her name. and that to me is much better of a way of handling that.
That can be in addition to other revenges.
You can mix and match that revenge, man. You can double scoop it.
You almost made me spit out my coffee.
Double dip.
I hope wherever she is, I hope she remembers you, and she's sitting there with her angry book of poetry, and there's one poetry like, die, Dakota, die.
Oh no, I don't hope for that.
Revenge goes both ways, Dakota. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it goes. She's definitely sitting in a car outside your house right now.
How'd you get past the snipers? I don't know.
She's been training for this day.
Apparently.
Spite is an excellent motivator, as we all know.
Yeah, it's true. That's good stuff. But yeah, so that's how I got my first book out, and it was doing okay. And then actually, it was Drew right here who mentioned my book to some of his readers during, possibly even during a podcast of this, 5 years ago, and that was one of the biggest reasons that we got, a flood of people coming over to read the books was Drew Hayes right here, mentioning them and pushing for that. So thank you again, man.
No problem. I remember that. That was I was doing a feature on the blog at the time of independent writers, because I was just trying to put some focus on fellow indie folks, and you were a name who got suggested a lot, so I remember reading The Divine Dungeon, writing it up, reaching out to you and everything. That's great. I did not expect that the blog would have that much draw, but I'm very glad to hear that it did.
and Drew's far too nice of a guy. He really should be sitting there going, I own you, man. You know that, right?
Well, I definitely remember it too. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that is definitely noticed, and it's something that's appreciated, and that's for years, man. Like that's a thing that people remember, and I mean, kickstarting someone's career is not something easily forgotten. So
that is awesome.
I do appreciate that.
Oh, I'm glad to help, but I mean, you sure have made a hell of a lot out of that opportunity, man. You've put out a bunch of books. You have 3 active series, 1 finished series. You're one of the only guys I know who does as many concurrent series as I do. So I kind of wanted to ask you, what makes you take that particular challenge on?
So part of it is just world builder syndrome, right? Like I have all of these ideas. I have something like 30 series outlined, right? And it's not because like it's mainly just to get them out of my head, right? So I put them down on paper, and then when I finish a series, I'll just start a new one, and that's my plan for the next 20 years or so. But I try to have 2 active series at a time, right? So I have I did Completionist Chronicles Divine Dungeon 1 through 5, and then I figured, that was a good ending point. And so ended that and ran with Completionist Chronicles. And I have 20 books planned for this series. But at the same time, you have other things that are big motivating factors in your life, right? So if you look at Artorian's Archives, so Artorian's Archives is something that Dennis Vanderkerken and I work on. So it's a spinoff from Divine Dungeon. And a lot of it is like mental health and like just personal what's the word I'm trying to say, like just good practice.
Oh, I thought you were going to say vendetta. Oh, never mind, carry on.
No, it's like it's like, so a lot of it, I mean, it's a fun story, it's a super good thing, but it's also like mental health and philosophy, and so it's much more of a deeper feeling book, right? It has a lot more research into it. It has a ton of actual philosophy, a ton of actual like mindfulness behaviors and things that, if read, are actually things that can be put in practice by people and potentially help them. And it's interesting. We actually, Dennis and I got pulled onto a behavioralists podcast because of the practices that we had outlined were actual, psychological things that you can do and things that you can do to like help yourself in situations and help yourself to grow as a person. So it's really cool to be pulled on by someone who's actually a professional in that field because it was so useful, right? And then, of course, opposite of that, my other inclination is power fantasy, so I have full murder hobo. So full murder hobo is just a series that I have. It's going to be just a trilogy of just power fantasy, just going wild and having as much fun with a character as I possibly can. And with that, though, more than just going around and going full murder hobo and things is it is a look at abnormal psychology, which was a really fun course for me in college. And I got to do a lot of different study for getting that book ready and for plotting out the trilogy. So I made it. It was my first foray into really following the psychological trail of different people in terrible and different situations, and how they came out of that and what they're doing to try and piece themselves together. So it's a really interesting story if you look past just the veneer of punching goats in the face.
I wanted to say I'm impressed as all hell. Just that, like, just hearing that you have like so many worlds and like series planned out in advance. That's a level of organization that myself in my advanced age looks at and says, yeah, I wish. So I just want to say that is really awesome. Just having like so much that even on a dry day, because 2020 was a dry year for me idea-wise. I love the idea that you just have this archive that you can go to and be like, this is what I'm going to write right now. I got to say I am jealous as all hell at that.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's I have spreadsheets, and I have so many of them, and that's really how I organize myself, is by spreadsheet. So, like,
Dakota, you are a man after my own heart, buddy.
I'm glad. No, it's so much easier to track stuff over long periods of time. Like if you are actually tracking it, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, because there's only so much you can do with just kind of like rereading your series before you start writing the next book, right? And if you're tracking it and really holding yourself in place, then it's a lot easier to move forward. There's what's the I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, thanks, man. I'm glad. Like, hopefully, I mean, I'm sure you're doing just fine over there.
Well, actually, that brings to my next question question follow up to that is, so as writers, we all get like, well, that bug up our ass of a story that needs to get out now. So how do you budget between, okay, here's my plan, here's my schedule, here's what I'm going to write next, versus here's what I really want to write next?
So my lovely wife gives me deadlines, and she says, give me these books in this amount of time or I will be upset. And so I write I write the books in the order she sets out. So no, I really, I mean, I do set my own schedule. Like I say, like, here's the books that I want, and she just tells me the amount of time I have to hand those in. Right. So, because I don't want to leave my readers kind of in the lurch waiting for a new book all the time. So I do have a fun piece of news for you guys if you're interested.
Sure.
So I have I have a new series coming out in 2022. So it's called Year of the Sword, and it's one book a month for the entire year, and then the series ends. That's the end of it. So 1 year, 1 year, 12 books. Yeah.
What size are you trying to shoot for on those?
They landed about 105,000 words each. So
what the fuck?
God, you're a machine.
I thought you were going to say like 50, maybe like 70 something. You're going 105 a pop for a full year. You're going 1.2 million words.
Yes. Yes.
Are they already written? Are you going to write them as you go, or what?
they're mostly a good chunk is already written.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Right. Yeah, it's a project I've been working on for 2 years. So, but yeah, I mean, the gimmick of it, the marketing gimmick of it, is is one book a month for a year, right? So Year of the Sword is the kind of the.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, that's a wow. I mean, let us know how it goes. There's no way in hell any of us would have the time and discipline to build that backlog. So it's going to be academic, but we're sure as shit going to be curious.
Oh yeah. Well, I built, the first thing I built was the lore and the system, right? So built all that up, and so had it really carefully built so that going forward it would be easy to write in there, right? Mm-hmm. And so like be easy to write, just follow the rules, right? And then so what that looks like is it kind of looks like a D&D manual at this point, which is pretty cool. And my intent with that series is because I want to write those 12 books and then be done, right? Mm-hmm. But I've set it up so that there's a massive amount of content that can be put in or added. And what I'm kind of planning on doing is turning that into an expanded universe where I have all of the rules and all that set up. So why not just let other people write it, right?
Sure. Also a good idea.
Right. So my plan with that is Year of the Sword is planned for 2022. In 2023, I have a bunch of my authors from in-house that I'm planning on having 4 of them do a trilogy so that we get another 12 books in that universe in that next year. And then during 2023, having that lore book open to other authors to use to write in the expanded universe, kind of Star Wars style. So yeah, so that's the 3-year plan with that one series. So next year looks like 18 books coming out.
Sounding unstoppable, man. This continues exponentially. You'll just be writing all the books in like a decade or so.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun thing, but you know, I'm young. I can do it.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll skip ahead to Demolition Man time. Right. At the end of the author world's wars, only Dakota Krout was left. Therefore, all books are Dakota Krout books.
Dakota Krout and 3 shells.
I've progressively been slowing down on the amount I can produce per day, per week overall, like just as I've gotten older and, the brain gets a little more tired. So building that base, that catalog that, sustains you and everything for as much as you can while you've got the energy, Jesus, that is smart.
I got to tell you, man, I'm barreling towards 40 and I haven't solved like even half of the amount of people on my revenge list, and you seem like you've got it all
together. It's just what's funny, man, is a lot of people ask me how I write so fast, and it's just I don't. I'm like those horror movies where you can run from the zombies all you like, and you can do everything you can, but they still show up and catch you, right? So that's kind of how I see myself as a writer. I'm constantly moving along, and it doesn't matter how, like, if people are sprint writing and getting ahead of me and stuff, I'm eventually going to drown them in it. Right?
The rest of us are all just running through the forest, screaming, tripping up. You're just marching through like Michael Myers.
Thank you for that. And all you hear coming up behind you.
No, something there's something to be said about that. I mean, you go to like the various writing boards, and there are people who are like, yeah, my goal is 1,000 words a day, which is relatively easy, but I do it every day. At the end of a year, I got like 3 huge novels or so, and yeah, I mean there's something to be said about that. I mean, I'm one of those people that, like, when I'm in writing mode, yes, I can crank out 5,000 or 6,000 words a day, but once I go into editing mode, I really have trouble editing and writing at the same time. So it's kind of like one runs into a brick wall, and I am not a quick editor.
Sure, and you don't have to be, man. I mean, that's why there's professional editors, right?
Like, well, revisions before I send it out to my editor.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
My books go through a lot of revisions and crap. I wish I was faster at that.
If someone out there is listening and hoping to get advice from professional writers, God, please pay for professional editors.
Oh yeah,
please.
Yeah. No, I only allow myself one editing pass, so it's a careful editing pass, but I only allow myself one before I send it off to other people to look at. Because you can get yourself bogged down in that stuff for long periods of time. And most of the authors here, right? You can attest to this. Is here's how the writing process goes. I love this idea. Tappity tappity tap. I'm starting to hate this book. I hate this book. This is the worst thing I've ever written. Oh my gosh, no one's going to like this. You hand it off to someone else, and they're like, "Oh my god, I love it!" And you're like, "Oh, really? Yeah, it's not that bad."
Yeah, I've never written a book I didn't hate in the middle.
Yeah, I know. Usually my response to that is, "What the hell's wrong with you that you like this garbage?"
By the end, I've usually come a little bit around, but yeah, when you're in the center of a book, you're like, this is a fucking career ender, and I know it.
Oh, yeah. Every time, and it never gets easier.
I don't think of it as a career ender. I'm saying I always think like, man, I hope they'll forgive this one, and the next one will be better.
Nice. Actually, I really like that idea because I'm one of those. Okay, usually, but when I release a book, we're talking like at least 3 or 4 revisions before it goes out to like an editor. But I really actually kind of like that idea of, okay, rather than do that, do one slow, careful everything edit. Because it's kind of hard to get sick of something with that. I might have to give that some thought. I don't know if I can do it, but sure. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, man. I mean, the editing death spiral is the thing that really takes you away from writing,
and the thing that makes you hate something.
Exactly. And I have a publishing company, right? We have 25 authors that currently write for us. Okay. And they're all putting out under their own names or their own pen names or whatever it is. But everyone has the same issues. Like they hit 60 to 70% of a book and they slow down incredibly, right? And it's just kind of going into that descent into the abyss, right? So you're getting to a point in the book where normal storytelling says, hey, this is where your character is going to be starting to run into issues and problems and have to find a way past that and into a happy moment. And a lot of people put themselves or get themselves too involved in that, right? They put themselves in that spot. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm writing, it's definitely a like, here's me in the book sort of thing, right? And so a lot of people have issue getting past that, but as soon as they get to 80%, all of a sudden the book is done. They're like, whoa, that last 20,000, and you're like, well, yeah, like every single time that happens to. So it's really interesting because I can through my company so far, and by the end of this, and it's really interesting to look at that and be able to see the same issue repeated. Have on this is like push through. There's also a graphic that I always like to point at. It's called it's called the survival trap, but I would type in like the survival trap business, right? Because otherwise you get like phishing stuff, and it's survival to your point B, and you have what takes you from A to B. Okay, so in our case, because what we are sell books so that this can be we can do this full time, right? And so our point A is writing books. Our point B is selling books and making money, right? And how we get there is by outside that line of going from A to B, and some of it is necessary, like push us to interact with our fan base and to do all sorts of stuff that puts eyes on us and lets us make those relationships between ourselves and our readers. But some of it is not necessary, right? And so a lot of people run into stuff like, hey, I've written a book and now I want to start a podcast on how to write books. And it's like, but you've written a book. So yeah, but I did really well at it. Yeah, like once, like keep doing that. Like that's the thing that's earning you a career. Like, and so sometimes other career paths become viable. Like, I don't know about you guys. I think it's a little foolish to narrate your own book. Okay, unless like
100%. I've taken that stand many times on this podcast.
You've heard me speak.
Yeah, you can hear my voice. No way.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, no one wants to hear my voice I don't want to hear my voice for hours on it. Ugh. And so the other part of that is what's happening if I take the time to go and learn how to narrate and learn the technology and do all that technology, and then I read the book for 40 hours and edit it down to 10 hours, 11 hours, whatever it is. How much time have I just spent where I could have written another book, right? And that's kind of the thing that I'm going for, is going from A to B is generating content. And that's why you see me having a book out every other month, right? I could probably have a book out a month if I really pushed it, but I also like to enjoy life, right?
Very reasonable.
Got to do that awkward living thing now and then.
Yeah.
I could work myself to death, but
yeah, I could, but
that would mean dying.
Long-term, you readers get more books if I don't die in 5 years from a heart attack.
That's
it's
exactly it, right there.
I'm going to say the moral of the story is we've been wasting our years for 5 years on this pod. We'll live their life for 5 years with this podcast.
I mean, we knew that going in.
Yeah, true.
But we get to waste other people's lives as well, Rick, and that's the beauty of it.
There you go.
Yeah, Dakota. This is an hour of your life we're taking away forever.
No, man, it's all good, because this is like breathing in, right? So like when you're generating content and pouring yourself into a book, it's like exhaling for long periods of time, right? You just you get that feeling where you're super drained. You can't you haven't inhaled in a long time and you're about to suffocate, right? And doing stuff with other people. I mean, for me, like this sort of thing, like coming on to podcasts or going to conferences and kind of talking to people is like breathing in, having fun, experiencing other things, doing things outside of my normal daily routine. It's like a big breath in, right? And so I don't know about you guys, but especially before the pandemic hit, it was definitely we live between conferences, right? So like every conference, like going to Dragon Con or going to 20 Books Vegas or going to Jordan Con or whatever it is, it was like once every 3 months or so. And so you're like, yeah. So you go to a conference, you come home and you're like, man, I'm so jazzed. Also, some of the people there were so sad and upset, and I don't want to be like that. So I really am going to go home and hit it hard. Right. and like, this it's just kind of how you feel. And because a lot of people have no qualms about letting you know exactly how hard it is. What they're doing is very hard. And you go home and you're like, it would take a day. It would take me saying one thing wrong for that to happen to me. I must go home and create content. Right. And so it's like, you go there and you come home and you're full of air and you're like, I'm going to put it all down on paper. And then, over the next month or two, words start slowing down a little bit. And then another conference hits. So 2020, I would say that would be why 2020 was, for so many authors, was there's no social interaction, right? There's nothing. So that you guys are doing this and still having fun and being able to do this on a regular basis. It's not a waste.
Yeah, rodeo is a waste. Steve and I have a streaming thing we do on YouTube. That is genuinely a waste of time. Everyone.
For the 10 people who watch it, it's not Drew.
Yeah.
You're being pretty generous with those numbers, Steve.
All right, that's I think a good segue to I guess my next question, which is okay. So you're starting off as a writer, you're learning the process, you're putting out books, people are reading them, are loving them. So what possessed you to say, I love this crazy business so much, I want to be a publisher?
Oh man,
yeah, that is a good one.
That's a good question, but there's a good answer for it too. So I read this book called The E-Myth, right? And it's kind of like how small businesses fail mostly. If you read the book, that's mostly what it is hey, here's signs of a failing business.
Just some light reading.
Sounds inspiring.
Yeah. Right. Well, so one of the lines in there, I think is right. If it's not the opening line, it should be. But it says, "So you made the mistake of starting a small business," and I was like, yeah, I did. So no, it's not quite that extreme. All right. So in my first year, when I put out Dungeon Born, right, it was October, I think it was October 3rd or 13th, one of the two. And I made like $5,000, right? And I was super jazzed. I mean, that at the time, that was a solid, that was 50% extra income for that year because I was, college student, right? In the next month, so October, and then into November, I wrote Dungeon Madness, and then over December and just about 2 New Year's, I wrote Dungeon Calamity, right? So I did those 3 books in 3 months and put those out, and then at that point I said, okay, so what have I been doing wrong in the sense of how can I make these better, right? How can I do all of this process better? And like I said, it kind of came back down to like people were reading a little bit, and then Drew popped in, sent people my way, and then they stayed there, which was super nice. So thank you for that. And so in that year, in 2017, I started looking into ways to do better, and obviously there were the big things right away, like editing. Like, hey, maybe get your books professionally edited so that people stop 2 stars for terrible grammar and such.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys remember my original covers on my books, but they were hand-drawn pencil, black and white, right? And so I did a lot of what I call failing, right? So it just so happened that the genre was new, and everyone was kind of going nuts trying to figure out what book covers worked for our genre, right? And so like we had like these crazy kaleidoscope looking books that were coming out, and there were so many of them. And then you had my first 3 books that were on the market and right next to each other on the page when you're scrolling through, and they're black and white in a sea of kaleidoscopes. It was something that people noticed, and so they would click it and read it. But eventually I did a poll, and a full quarter of my like super hardcore said they almost didn't start reading because the covers were so bad that they just almost didn't pick them up. So I had to change those, So did that. So yeah, I started like doing all these things, like learning how to do stuff better, like where to go for artists, trying out different editors and getting to rely on, finding beta readers that would be able to move quick and give good feedback. And then I took courses not on how to write better, but on how to sell things, right? So like how to manage my business, like in terms of doing advertising, in terms of social media, in terms of getting books in front of people and having them buy them. Okay. And so that was what I was taking courses on, because I really believe that most courses for writing are stuff that funnels you back into academia, right? So if you kind of like take writing courses at a university, you're learning how to do proper grammar and sentence dissection and stuff like that. And it's useful for a lot of things in like careers, but it's not what I'm going for with my books, right? And so the focus was all on learning the business of writing books. And before I knew it, I had spent something like $30,000 on learning how to do all this stuff and testing different things and paying people for the work that they did. And so I was looking at my spreadsheet of money in, money out, and I was still positive because I had written more books at this point. And I said, to keep this data valid and viable, I can't just hoard this knowledge. Like I like at the time, I was like, I can't write fast enough my whole life to make all of this research viable the whole time. And so I said, so what can I do with this knowledge that I have and data points that we have? Like, how can I use this? And I said, what I could do? And I went to Danielle and we decided to start a publishing company. And then we took on 3 authors to start, and they did super duper well. Really, rocked the charts, big breakout successes. And then once we had that social proof of, like, hey, it's not just the stuff that I do for myself that works. It's like I use that to model this company and make other people successful, and that's why we're where we're at. That is why we are where we are at.
I am going to throw out the name of that company is Mountaindale Press, because I don't know if we've really plugged it as you've been talking about all the effort that went into it. So if anyone's interested in that, seeing those authors and whatnot, it's Mountaindale Press, mountaindalepress.com.
Yep.
And for any authors listening, one, what genres do you publish in, and two, this is the time now to to either get submissions or tell them no, we're not accepting it, please go elsewhere.
So we're technically we're never accepting submissions right now, right? We have a full plate. I'm not going to tell people not to submit. It just that it doesn't go to me, so it goes to our acquisitions team. So if you get rejected, it wasn't me.
The door's not open, but you can blow the fucking hinges off.
Hey man, it's happened before, where it goes to the acquisitions team and we're not accepting the submissions, but they're like, this is just so amazing, I can't not send it through. And it's very rare. It's very rare that happens. But I'm never happy that we have to turn away, but we do have a pretty limited, amount of resources that we can use to push out books, and our process for all of this is pretty stringent as well. So it's a ton of work, and then you don't see what the results are going to be for. So it can be tough. But so Mountaindale Press, you definitely go there. We publish lit RPG, GameLit, and cultivation novels. So basically 3 genres that are kind of under the umbrella of progression fantasy. And so that's what we roll with, and I like to say that we do pretty well with those.
I've never heard it called progression fantasy. Normally when most people talk about it, they just roll it all under that's lit RPG.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's all progression fantasy, right? So it's just typically has a more of a hard magic system, right? So you get to see the data of how and why they're able to do what they do, and they have to make the conscious decision to progress in those ways, right? So it's like, I mean, depending on who you talk to, it goes something like all books, science fiction, fantasy. Like I'm talking in terms of like categories.
Sure.
Down to fantasy, progression fantasy, GameLit, which people in the genre like to say is a bigger umbrella because it encompasses all game style books. And then like lit RPG would be underneath of that because it is a specific type of game, which is RPGs, right?
I thought GameLit was just a term for people that didn't want to be associated with lit RPG.
Basically, I mean, pretty much. It's a pretty solid rivalry, but eventually, I mean, kind of that was kind of near the start of the genres. Now it's settling more into like a kind of a category style of things, and people that weren't there right at the start of it just kind of look at it as a category. They don't look at it as, this person didn't like this person, so they said, I'm going to go start my own category, So yeah, I mean, it's been a few years now since that happened, and people are kind of chilling about it, which is nice.
That's actually a very interesting one to learn a little bit more about the category and genre stuff. I think Bevan also might hit this too. Sometimes get one of my series, the Spell, Swords, and Stealth one, put into lit RPG by folks, which it's not a problem for me, but I always feel disingenuous owning that because there's so many features of that genre that are not present in those books. I feel like it would be just setting someone up for disappointment if that's what they're looking for. So I guess it's good to know that there is a wider umbrella that I can sort of point to and say, well, no, it doesn't have these factors, but it is gaming literature.
Sure. Yeah, man. And the other part of that is how can you decide how someone else defines your book?
Oh, no, you can't on that. But, when people ask me about it, like, it's sort of hard to debate with them. They're like, oh, it is this. It's like, I don't want to invalidate what you're saying, but I also can't, like, back it because I'm missing these factors and I don't want to falsify what I'm selling.
There's also the downside in that in that sometimes you kind of want to say that, because I know on the Silas Kane scrolls, which is based on our normal A&D game. I have at least one review there that was like, I picked it up, I thought it was like lit RPG. It was really well written, but it didn't have an advancement system, so 2 stars.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was like,
yeah, you always want people to get the book they think they're getting.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you just want them to get fucked. But
yeah, I guess. Or if you're doing it intentionally,
you will enjoy the story no matter what, motherfucker.
I mean, if you sneak like a gore horror one in under a romance cover, you kind of know what you're up there.
That's fair.
Now I want us to do that. Like whatever our sequel to the Shingles thing is, gory horror but with sweet Amish romance covers.
I might start that in the comedy horror charts, where there is inevitably, I'm working my way up the comedy horror charts. I always get roadblocked by some abs on some cover, some shifter romance. You're in the wrong genre, pal. I think I might just start reviewing this. Like, I jerked off to this a lot, but I didn't laugh once. 2 stars.
I think that's going to be my go-to review for everything now.
Jesus. First person banned from Amazon reviews.
Thanks a lot, Mein Kampf.
Jesus.
So while we're talking genres, I have a sort of one related to that. You've clearly worked in several already, but only so many hours in a day. Are there any that you kind of like look at and think, man, if I had the time or the right story, like I'd really love to take a crack at that one?
What's funny is, kind of like I've always kind of wanted to know what it would be like if I kind of wrote more dirty stuff, kind of a super sexual version of like a lit RPG.
Oh,
right?
I can tell you about that one.
Right, yeah. So like I feel like I would, but it's so off-brand for me that it's like it's just not worth doing, right?
I mean, that's why they have pen names, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know, but like, so with the problem with that is that you're starting from zero, right?
Yeah.
You have to restart.
Yeah,
and make a whole new fan base.
Build a name as big as yours, you don't want to let that go.
Yeah. And I also don't want to like put something out there and then have other people be like, oh wait, that's Dakota Krout, and then all of a sudden my current brand is tainted / imaged by the other pen name, right? And I feel like I'm fairly recognizable. So if I were to like start going to these other things and be like, yeah, like these are my books and try to claim them, like people would be like, yeah, but you're also Dakota. So.
Oh yeah, if you show up in person, that's where it
See,
right. Yeah,
but the upside of starting from zero, take a little while before that pen name gets invited anyway.
I was going to say, some of us started off with already damaged brands, so it really doesn't hurt. But related to that, so how do you really balance? Because okay, so obviously there's the business side of this, but there's the writing side, which a lot of us we enjoy. We want to get creative and stuff. So how do you balance that when you're like, okay, business sense says do this, but man, I really want to write this story because it's screaming to me.
I don't write it.
Huh?
Discipline, Rick.
Yeah, discipline. Exactly. What I do is I have a good friend, like a harem writer, right? So I have a couple. Actually, it's surprising. I have a lot of friends who are harem writers, and they write kind of like GameLit style stuff. And so every once in a while, I'll be like, "Hey, man, here's an idea I had that I can't ever use. So please, if this is something that you can use, go for it." And so I've had like lots of conversations with people on that sort of topic. But yeah, just stuff like that. Just pass it on to friends if I can't use it, or try to.
It's like, okay, so 2022, we have Year of the Sword, but imagine that with dicks instead.
What is that? There was another terrible book cover, like my flawed lover dildo hands. Have you guys?
Wow.
Wait, what?
So that was again. That was like I said. I mentioned on Board Panda put up a post of like the 35 worst ever book covers, and that was one of them on there, along with Rexus. And so like they kind of juxtaposed them where it was like my flawed lover dildo hands, and then the next one was like Rexus, who had T-Rex head hands, right? And like to them they're like, I don't know which one is worse, and I was like, I know which one is worse. What are you talking about?
Rexus wasn't bad at all.
Rexus is a funny cover, but there is no way it's a bad cover.
Yeah, it very much looks like you hired an actual artist to make it, and they did a nice job. Like compliments to them. Board Panda's full of shit. That's a nice cover.
Nah, it was funny to be. It was just funny to be on Board Panda. Like I was like, oh, how nice. Okay. No, what's funny about that cover is that the guy on the cover is my brother-in-law, right? So my sister's husband is the guy who I used as the character model for that image. And just like so the person in the book, his name is Jackson, Jaxon, and my brother-in-law's name is Jason, right? So I just changed the S to an X. They're both chiropractors and acupuncturists, and except that the one I wrote about has hands that can transform into T-Rexes. So
it's good they can transform. That'd be rough in the chiropractic.
Are you kidding? Be rough. Be like, I'm gonna go surf some port. No, actually, I'm not. Because Righty looks hungry.
Why are you sitting weird? I was wiping my ass. And,
Well, it's like a spell though. It's a skill. It's
less
like
teeth, more tongue, hand.
Oh God. There's the Bevan.
There was a slightly borderline comment that I made in the book where he's like, "Oh my, I had to tame my hands again. I haven't had to do that since I was a teenager."
Very classy masturbation.
Yes, I was going to say your borderline stuff. I think is for shingles is considered a very slow Tuesday.
So we've talked about how all of your books kind of factor into the progression fantasy, seem to have some gaming mechanics. Does that mean you have a strong background in gaming yourself? Any favorites that have stuck with you through the years?
So part of it is just because I have a degree in computer science, right? So I spent quite a bit of time as a programmer and working IT, and so like kind of building systems and methods for doing things and getting things done has been something that has been a part of my life since I joined the Army at 17, right? And I definitely played a lot of D&D, especially in college and high school. Basically I started writing after I after the people that I was hanging out with graduated and moved away or whatever it was, right? And so a lot of D&D, a lot of RPGs and video games like that, but so always enjoyed them, and so I decided why not put them into books as I write them.
Yeah, that's pretty much my story, except without all the talent and background
organization
and everything. Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously we're D&D fans. I've been playing since I was 15. I had the realization I've been playing D&D longer than I've not been playing D in terms of parts of my life, and that's a real mind fuck when you're like, oh God, time. Fuck you.
Yep.
I don't want to fucking hear it, man. I'm pushing 5-0 this year, so.
Oh no.
See, I'm looking forward to 47, so I can say I've been longer than I haven't been married.
Oh, that's a very sweet one.
To the same person. And I
think we're gonna have to advertise this one as hey, the A&D guys talk to another fantasy writer, except one who has his shit together.
I've got to say, yeah, we've talked to a lot of writers and they're all fascinating and talented people, but I think this is the podcast I'm going to walk away from saying, I wonder how I can join his guru class.
Our listeners don't come here for people with their shit together.
I will tell you that most of the actual organization, the reason that I'm successful is based on Danielle. Right. So it's my lovely wife. I can tell you that I I'm a creative person. I'm really good at entrepreneurial stuff, like moving stuff forward and going in new ideas and testing stuff. But what I like to do is I kind of like burn bridges as I cross them. So I'm like, hey, cool, here was a cool idea. And then I'm like, oh, cool, another cool idea this way. And so I'll just like toss a torch behind me and run. And if Danielle's not there to like catch that torch and keep the bridge from burning, it will burn, right? So definitely I will say that without her, my success is not something.
I thought you were going to say, without her, I'd be you guys.
What the heck? That doesn't sound like me at all.
Yeah, he wouldn't lose his hair, Rick.
Jeez. No, you guys are lovely.
Did anybody else have any questions they wanted to get in?
No, I mean, I just wanted to to thank you for joining us. And I mean, all jokes aside, I am super impressed by everything you said, because like I know my own brain is like a bag of angry cats. So just to just to hear just to hear the organization standpoint is just fascinating, because I mean, as writers, we're artists, so we're expected to have brains that are bags of angry cats. So it's really impressive to to just hear everything you've accomplished in like such a short time. I mean, I just want to say that sincerely.
Yeah, I feel like such a lazy piece of shit.
No, please. It's just, I mean, it's just time and experience with systems, man. That's all.
Well, I've got to say, we get people coming up to us now and then asking for advice on writing books. And normally I don't have anything more honest I can give people than start the fucking thing and finish the fucking thing and try not to go mad in between. Yep. But I think from now on, I'm just going to link them to this podcast. And there you go.
Well, it's some pretty high praise, guys, and thank you.
In the time you've talked to us, Dakota has already outlined 6 series.
No.
I mean, it's an impressive catalog, man. You've got a lot out, and it's all very highly rated, so you're giving your fans what they like. Congratulations on your success and on the new book 6, according to Amazon, of the Completionist Chronicles Inflame. At
this point, I'm much more inclined to believe Dakota over Amazon. I don't think Amazon has got its shit together the way he has.
I'm over here like nervous, like Amazon's listening. I know they are.
Oh, they always are.
I will just say, when you start your Amazon competitor, I will be first on board.
Oh my gosh. No, you guys are great. And again, thank you so much for having me on. Like, this has been a ton of fun.
Sure thing. Did you have anything else you wanted to link folks to or tell them to check out?
So I have, kind of like the standard ones. Check us out on Facebook. So just facebook.com, look for Dakota Krout, or mountaindalepress.com is a great place to find more. And then you can always go look for us, Mountaindale Press, on Facebook, just see people that are participant in what we do. I do have a Patreon, and people are welcome to come there too. It's just patreon.com/Dakota Krout. I have books on there. Like the reason I plug that is because I have books on there that are patron exclusive, at least until next year. Nice. So if you want more content than is already available, there's extra books there.
Oh, that's a hell of a good offering for a Patreon.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, hell of a good offering.
It's a hell of a lot better than mine.
I'm rubbing my fingers together.
We will link those in the episode description for folks.
Sweet. All right, cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dakota. We appreciate your time. We had a great time with you here on Authors and Dragons Side Quest.
Same here, man. Thanks, guys. And thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you.
For the listeners, we will be back next week with a regular episode of Authors and Dragons, and then in another 2 weeks with Side Quest. Until then, bye.
Bye. Bye.